वतन का अनुभव जो कर लेता एक बार। प्रभु तेरे वतन का अनुभव जो कर लेता एक बार, उसका तो मन हो जाता है सभी हदों से पार। प्रभु तेरे वतन का अनुभव जो कर लेता एक बार। प्रभु तेरे वतन का अनुभव जो कर लेता एक बार। बिखर रहा प्रकाश यहाँ दिव्य लाल सुनहरा, बंधन मुक्त अवस्था का यहाँ हो रहा अनुभव गहरा। बिखर रहा प्रकाश यहाँ दिव्य लाल सुनहरा, बंधन मुक्त अवस्था का यहाँ हो रहा अनुभव गहरा। समा के तेरी किरणों में मिल रहा आनंद अपार। प्रभु तेरे वतन का अनुभव जो कर लेता एक बार। प्रभु तेरे वतन का अनुभव जो कर लेता एक बार।
Jayanti, gentlemen, and welcome everyone. And I loved what Baba said in the Murli, gentlemen, that just as we burn in Baba's love, we become pure. And I thought, what an easy way to become pure. Thank you, gentlemen.
Om Shanti to Arunaben and to everybody else. There's a story I'd like to share about the festival of Holi, and let me share it now at the beginning. I knew very little about the festival of Holi because having grown up here, we didn't celebrate it so much, if anything. And in 1970, I'd been speaking at the Spiritualist Association of Great Britain, which is where service really took off in London, and many Brahmins came from that place. And a woman came to see me afterwards, and she kept in touch, and she looked Indian, but her accent wasn't Indian. And that's when I first discovered that there were people of Indian origin in Guyana, and Guyana was way, way down to the west. I hadn't heard of Guyana until I met this lady. And after a couple of weeks, she then invited me to come and speak at what she called was the Caribbean Hindu Society. And it was actually, she was a president there. And the topic was going to be Phagwa. Again, I didn't know that Phagwa was the Bihari term for Holi. And so I gave a talk there, and I had to do a bit of research because I didn't know anything about it. And I discovered the story of Hiranyakashipu, the king who was a demon, who called himself God and expected everybody to believe that and worship him. And his own son, Prahlad, was the one who challenged him. And so Prahlad, Prabhu ka Olad, the child of God. And so Prahlad said, no, you're not God. God is the one up above. And so the king had his sister, who had been blessed that she would never be burnt by fire. So he had his sister sit on this pyre, and Prahlad was held in her lap and he couldn't let go. He was there. And so the expectation was that she would survive and Prahlad wouldn't. But somehow God's protection supported him and he survived. Anyway, so finally, Prahlad was killed, another long story. But this then led to an invitation to go to Guyana. And so the story of Guyana begins with the story of Holi. And then when I was actually there, then in the month of March in 1976, some years later, I realized that it was a very, very big festival and we could go and meet the Prime Minister. He'd have the doors open for anyone who wanted to come and give him greetings for Holi. So the story of Holi always reminds me of a whole country opening up through that particular story. So that's the background of why I find Holi very interesting. But Baba was, of course, taking it up in the concept of purity. Holy, yes, of course, holy. And Baba was the bestower of fortune, celebrating the auspicious meeting with the holy swans, the children who were loving and cooperative and were natural yogis, easy yogis, and were there to celebrate the auspicious meeting with Baba. We are still in the 83 Murlis. So in this particular Murli, then Baba reminded us of how great our own stage of purity really is, and how even the sages and saints whom the impure householders worship and say they're the great pure ones, but even the sages and saints would acknowledge that our purity is greater than theirs. And then Baba explaining why that is so, and how with our pure thoughts, our pure consciousness, our pure attitude, and our pure vision, we're actually transforming the world, but also the elements of the world, which is why then we get the gift of having a pure, healthy body for birth after birth many times through that whole period of the golden and silver ages. And even up through, I would say, till the end of the Iron Age, when I think about how strong Dadi Janki was, how strong Dadi Prakashmani was in terms of their physical health, you know, they managed to survive all sorts of things, but their bodies were actually quite strong. And Dadi would laugh and say, well, the food that we had was actually made from purer elements than the food that you're receiving today. And so our bones have that original strength. And I believe that even at the beginning of the 20th century, the food that they had was a lot purer than what we've had over the past 50 or so years. So yes, definitely. The purity of the body, the purity of the elements, even though it's Kali Yuga, it contained a certain amount of strength that is totally lacking today. And then Baba was talking about why our purity is so powerful and how we're actually able to burn all the impurity. Because like if a seed is roasted, if a seed is burnt, it loses its fertility. It's not able to reproduce anymore. And so whatever was the seed of impurity within the soul, we're able to not just finish it, but we're able to actually burn it away. because even if you think someone's dead, there could be a trace of life hidden away somewhere that's going to emerge. And so with Ravan, they don't just kill Ravan, they burn the effigy of Ravan. And so that's, of course, just the physical thing, but we actually are able to burn the vices completely, the whole trace and name and trace of all impurity finishes. And the festival of Holi is interesting because the first day is the symbolism of the sister of the king sitting with Prahlad in her lap and the burning. But of course, Prahlad doesn't burn, he's protected by God. And so the burning, the symbolism of the burning of all the impurities. And then the next day is the coloring and the celebration of a happy meeting. And so even friends who perhaps haven't been so friendly and there's been some sort of rift between them, on the day of Holi, they'll, especially the next day, the second day, they'll say, okay, let the past be the past. We're ready to give and forgive, and let's be friends again. And so the happy meeting, the auspicious meeting, and of course, it's the auspicious meeting of all of us, the souls with Shiv Baba and the whole Brahmin family coming together in a very benevolent, auspicious, and uplifting meeting with Baba. And within that, the coloring of the soul. And Baba mentioning how only when the soul is clean and pure can it then be colored by God. And think about if you ever tried coloring any material. Some years ago, at least many years ago, there was this whole craze about tie and dye. Well, the cloth had to be really clean so that then you could dip it into the color and the color would stick. If the cloth wasn't clean, then the color wouldn't stick. And so Baba saying that only when the soul is clean and pure, then the company of God is able to color it and transform it completely. And so no trace or name of impurity should remain, but it should be completely burnt away so that it's finished forever. And a sentence that Baba mentioned, with your thoughts, you can change your dreams. And so if there are dreams that someone is having that are not very pleasant, then the way to transform that and to be able to have happy dreams, sweet dreams of Madhuban, of Baba and the Dadis, the way to do that would be to change my consciousness, the quality of my thoughts, my awareness through the day. So it's not just one thought that can change it, but if I accumulate pure thinking and pure attitude and pure vision, so through all of that, I'm actually changing the quality of my dreams also, so that my dreams are also ones that uplift me and carry me to Baba. So the purification of the soul in this particular way. And I definitely didn't remember until I started reading that whole passage, and then it emerged that, yes, I did have a conversation with Daddy Jayanti about this also, but Baba talking about the two types of Maharathis. One, the Maharathis who attain that status of being an elephant rider, moving fast and strong and stable. And that happens through their own awareness of the blessings they've had from Baba or the inheritance they've taken from Baba. And so it's a whole question of the inner stage and the consciousness and the effort that's been created to make that stage possible. And the second type of Maharathi, they have a particular speciality, a particular virtue, and Baba has used them for an instrument for a particular task or many tasks. But their stage of Maharathi is not from the internal effort that they've made, but more it's the gift as a result of service. And of course, service, then Baba said, through the body. So it's something external. And again, Baba used this word that it's an external form of being a Maharathi, not that inner courage and strength and power of the first type of Maharathi. And so the first type of Maharathi, able to swing in the swing of super sensuous joy, able to experience the swing of being content, able to experience the love from the hearts of the divine family. And so the soul constantly stable in its happiness and contentment and love. And the other Maharathi seems to be content, but of course, internally, there isn't that power. And even the love that's being received from the family, sometimes there'll be love, sometimes it won't be so forthcoming, or it might even be a little bit of love, superficial love, not really profound love. And so very big difference in the stage and the qualifications of these two souls. And so Baba then going on further to explain that what is it that happens when you're making promises to Baba, and both types of children make promises to Baba, the true Maharathis and the service Maharathis. And Baba said, you all make beautiful promises to Baba. Some put it in the form of prose, some in poetry, some in song, some even in pictures. And so the promises you make are very good. And of course, every time you remember that promise, it reinforces your determination to be able to follow it through in life. So it's good. That's absolutely fine. But what is it that happens in terms of forgetting that promise and not actually being able to manifest it in a practical way? So what's going on at that time? And Baba's explanation that the seed hasn't been burnt. There hasn't been that tapasya to completely burn it. And so while the seed is still alive, a little bit of water and the right or the wrong circumstances or different reasons come to stimulate it and trigger the germination again. And so you'll see little leaves sprouting out. And so you thought you dealt with an issue, but it keeps coming up. Instead of being finished and gone forever, it keeps arising again and again. And you're surprised at yourself. How come I thought I'd finished this, but it hasn't gone? And so it may be in the context of somebody else's sanskars, that your own sanskar is being triggered. Maybe it's in the context of a specific situation and different forms of that situation coming up again and again. And that little seed again emerges and you're shocked by it. And maybe others are also shocked as they see you. And so really, the reason is that A, it's not fully burnt, but also Baba gave another very interesting reason. What you're doing is you're not actually changing your awareness and your attitude and your vision of that individual, which means that you try and remind yourself of their speciality. And so, yes, for a little while, that awareness of that speciality remains. And so you're not bothered by their weakness, but inattention, lack of attention, and also lack of making it completely natural, that instead of seeing the weakness, you're always seeing and speaking and noticing their speciality, their particular quality. And the example that Baba gave was very interesting, that, okay, you say you're not going to see the weakness, so you've cleared a little bit of space. But in today's world, where there are lots of bugs flying around all the time and there's dust flying around, so in that little space, the dust and the bugs will accumulate and they'll multiply. And so the space in here needs to be not just cleaned out once, but it mustn't be left empty. I must replace that lack of the lack of qualities that I'm noticing, or the weakness that I'm noticing, and replace it with the speciality that I know they have, but I forget, and I have to remind myself. But not just to remind myself, let it be there continually. Let it become a natural habit, just as in Kali Yuga, the natural habit was to find fault. And so now, let it be a natural development and a natural habit in which now I'm only seeing the speciality. You know the people who trigger you. And so can I change my consciousness, my awareness, my attitude towards them, so that then I see only the good? And this is the role that I have to play for myself in being able to bring about this transformation. And so Baba's saying, well, you're complaining that they haven't changed, and you have this idea that, oh, they're never going to change. But what about you? Ask yourself, have I changed? I'm expecting somebody else to change, but have I changed this negative habit of seeing fault? And so the finger pointing to the self and being able to make that difference, to bring about that difference within myself. And Baba said, if you yourself change, then probably that's going to be an inspiration for everybody else to change also, because it'll become visible. And so change yourself, and that will inspire others to make a change also. And probably that problem will be resolved forever. But I have to take that step of changing myself. And another very interesting point that Baba took up, some weeks ago, Baba talked about how yoga, instead of experiencing upliftment and happiness, there's the karmic accounts of the past that still remain, and they're causing that heaviness in the soul. And also in that, Murli Baba had spoken about seeing weaknesses and faults, and that's again the accumulation that's causing the soul to be heavy and not happy. And so in this Murli, again, Baba's talking about the reason why there isn't that experience of happiness. And so when I sit in yoga, am I lighter at the end of the yoga, or am I feeling my head become heavy? Is there a tendency to fall off and to fall asleep and drop off? What am I doing about that, and what's going on there? And Baba's explanation that your yoga is very dry. You're just focused on thinking, I'm a point of light, God is a point of light. You're experiencing peace, I'm the embodiment of peace. But the experience of peace and the experience of happiness are very different. And if there's only the experience of peace, then maybe it's a little bit dry and heavy. And so unless you change the quality of your thinking when you sit for yoga, it's not going to be a very happy experience. And so the type of thoughts to have, think about your fortune. My fortune of coming to Baba, multi-million times fortune that Baba was able to find me, my fortune of the treasures that Baba's giving me, all the opportunities that I've had, how lucky I am to be God's child, to experience that very special love and intoxication of the relationship with God. And as I was reading that, I was remembering this morning's Murli and Baba saying, think about the lover and the beloved, and how this is the beloved you've been talking to in many, many births, but not knowing where to find him. And now the beloved is in front of you, and you can connect with the beloved and experience that love. And so that joy and that intoxication in my yoga, and of course, the quality of my yoga is going to be very, very different if it's in this type of consciousness than I'm a soul, I'm a point of light, and I go off into, probably use the word nil, emptiness. And so that also happens sometimes. Or sometimes people say, oh, that was a very good experience of peace that I had, but they were off somewhere else and not actually in yoga. And so sometimes when yoga is dry in that way, then there isn't zeal and enthusiasm and that experience of transformation happening. And so Baba connecting it very much with that quality of powerful yoga, intoxicating yoga filled with zeal and enthusiasm that's going to give me that confidence and encourage me to move forward in my transformation and to be able to experience that stage that I really would like to have. So Baba's Murlis give us tips about transforming our sanskars, tips about improving the quality of our yoga, how to be able to do that. And of course, when I think about Brahma Baba and how Baba maintained his intoxication all the way through till the end, and of course the Dadis too, but Brahma Baba having really invested so much in the sustenance of all the children. And until Baba left, the only one who had reached her angelic stage was Mama. All the others were still making effort. And so, but Baba always maintained that intoxication of who Baba is and what he was to become and how he had to serve the children with continuous love, without any break or expectation or anything like that. And so a Murli of purity, and wonderful that this Murli of purity has come during the season of Raksha Bandhan. And of course, until we meet again, there'll already be the festival celebration of Rakhi. The actual festival day comes on Sunday. So at some point through the week, I'm sure you'll all have your Rakhi celebrations. And so a reminder of that very, very elevated stage of purity that only Brahmins can achieve. Why? Because it's only Brahmins who experience that real connection and relationship with Baba, the purifier. Sakar Murlis remind us a lot of the role of God as purifier. And today's Murli also reminding me that it's only through that fire of yoga that truly all the sanskars that are still lying dormant, waiting for situations to trigger them. Now it's time to finish all of those. So a powerful Murli yet again. The ocean keeps showering us with more and more and more treasures. So just keep practicing even one Murli a week at a time, and surely perfection is not far away at all. Okay, let me stop here. Om Shanti.
And gentlemen, you are the master ocean of knowledge, because you just revised the Murli like a computer. So it's amazing. Thank you so much.
No, they have this question, are you a robot? No, I'm not a computer.
No, but it's so systematic and just flowing as in the Murli. So thank you so much. Gentlemen, could you tell us how would we know when the seed is burnt? Because we think, as you said, as Baba said, we think we've burnt it. But what should we be looking out for when the seed is burnt?
Start looking out for the warning signs, because a little bit of a thought arises. You see, this person's doing the same thing again. This person hasn't changed. So if I'm getting even a tiny wandering of the mind into these thoughts, then I know that there's still something there. And that's when I have to make sure I keep that space clean and fill it with something positive in the way Baba described. So today Baba was talking about not just the burning, but also filling that space so that there's no vacant space left.
Yes, right, Jindaban. And I wondered if you'd want to say anything about cremation and why the body is burnt.
In Bharat, they believe that until the body is still there, there's always the possibility of the soul to wander instead of moving on quickly to its next costume, the fetus in the mother's womb, because there's been such a strong attachment to the body for the whole of one's life, right from being in the mother's womb until even after death. And so that body is still the magnet that can pull the soul. And so finish the body completely, like we are hearing in the Murli, burn it, all trace of it goes away, so that there's nothing there for the soul to be pulled back to. Then the soul is free to move on. And so this is why in Bharat, if a person dies at night, next day, immediately, the cremation happens. Or if the person dies in the morning, by the afternoon, everything's done and dusted. The only difference has been when, at least that I'm aware of course, abroad, there's all these systems of making an appointment for the funeral parlor and the chapel being available, not available. So sometimes it can become a few days. But I know that certainly Bharatvasis would really try and make it happen, even abroad, very, very fast. But in the case of, say, Brahma Baba, or in the case of some of the dadis, with Dadi Janki, it happened very fast. But in the case of Dadi Prakash Mani, they waited for people to arrive. Dadi Gulzar, they had to bring her body back to Abu, so it took a couple of days. So because the soul is so pure, and to a certain extent, a great extent, even the body that it occupied has gone through a process of purification through all the years of yoga and going beyond the physical senses. There isn't that same pull to the body. We know that the soul is up above, but otherwise finish the body so that that connection breaks and the soul can move on to wherever it needs to go.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Sorry, one more thing connected with that. All the belongings associated with that individual are also given away. They're not kept. One particular individual in foreign lands, and she said to Dadi that she'd been in Gyan for a few years by then, and her husband had passed away even much earlier than the time she came to Baba. So she said to Dadi that I feel very heavy. I'm not able to experience good yoga and whatever. I have total faith and so on. And Dadi happened to be in her country at some point. And Dadi said, okay, take me to your home. This is, of course, the days when Dadi's timetable wasn't so solidly packed out, but even then it was not so easy, but Dadi made it a point to go to her home. And you know how Dadi used to, especially with a person living alone, Dadi would say to them, show me your room, show me your cupboards. And Dadi would just get a lot of information from just that. And in this case, what she saw was that in the closet, the late husband's clothes were still hanging there. The suits, the shirts, the shoes were there, all cleaned and lined up, kept immaculate. And Dadi said to her, you know, you asked me, why do I feel heavy? This is why you're feeling heavy. All these things are still reminding you of that individual. And it's already been some years now. It's time to give all of this away so that you can be lighter and you're not pulling that soul towards you anymore. And so it's again something that's part of the rituals. In India, they don't always understand that that's what it's all about, but it's actually part of the rituals that a Brahmin priest who deals with these things is given all that stuff, and what they do with it is then their business, but they don't keep the things belonging to that individual.
Yes, gentlemen. And there's also the story of Santri Dadi, and she had lots of jewelry left back at home. And then Baba said, this is why you keep falling sick. And so they got it. And in other words, she finished all accounts with her Lokik family and she got better health. Okay, so gentlemen, I thought we'd take up the other topic this week, and then we have already quite a few questions, general questions. So this week we'd like to take up the topic of advance party, because again, many souls have this question. So Jenben, maybe you could just give an overall view of what is advance party and how they're actually taking birth. I mean, I know it's number-wise, but again, if you could just firstly give an overall view of advance party.
It was in March 68 that I first heard this term advance party. And this is while Baba is still Sakar. And it was a time when Dada Vishwakishore had left the body, and there'd been a message that the Dadis should all gather together, and either Baba would meet them or Baba would send a message. And I'm not sure which of the two happened, but this was in Bombay, and the Dadis had anyway come for Dada Bhau, and the message that came through was that this soul, Dada Vishwakishore, had gone into the advance party, and Mama was also in the advance party. And this was quite a shock for the Brahmin family at that time, especially the Dadis and the Dadas who had grown up with Mama in the days of Karachi and so on. They were very, very attached to her. And so in that intervening gap of about 3 years, they were by then ready to hear that, yes, the soul has taken birth, and somebody still wanted to go off and find her. And Baba said, no, don't disturb that soul. She's now playing a different role. You don't have to do that. And this is exactly why Baba didn't tell you earlier. So the statement about Mama was that she has taken birth in a royal family so that there can be the bridge created for the kingdom of Satyug to begin. And of course, with Dada Vishwakishore and then Didi, there'd been another message in which Baba had said how they all know each other. These souls of the advance party are connected. Baba didn't use the word related, but he just said connected. And so the families know each other, meet with each other, and they don't recognize each other in the way that this is Didi, this is Mama, or anything like that. But they feel that kinship, they feel that closeness when they do meet each other. And they're all in very high-level families. And then for Dadi Prakashmani, Baba had said that the child has been born into a home where they had really, really done a lot of bhakti to receive a child. They hadn't had a child, and so this was the fruit of their bhakti. And so there was that very pure love and very pure environment. And Baba said that out of the mouth of the child will come statements that will astound the father. The father doesn't hold a high position in government, but he is a confidant of the people in power. And so he gives advice to them. And sometimes the wisdom of the child will surprise even the parent. And the father will begin to realize that this is a special soul. And the advice that the child is giving is actually going to be heeded by those in authority, in power. So who, where, what, we don't know. Baba doesn't want us to know because it'll be a distraction for us and for them. But Baba also said how Baba keeps calling all these souls who are the very close souls of the advanced party to the subtle region on special occasions like 18th January. Usually we hear that the advanced party was with Baba. At other special times, we hear in the messages that Baba called the advanced party there. And so their consciousness is pulled to that subtle region and they're with Baba. And Baba said, especially at Amrit Vela, Baba sometimes calls them together. And of course, on the external level, the child would be asleep. And so no question about, what's happened to this child. But the consciousness would have been pulled up there. And my understanding is that the other day, Baba spoke about how the parents of Krishna are not as known as the soul of Krishna because the parents haven't taken birth through purity. The soul of Krishna takes birth through purity. So the first deities that are born, and Baba said that there'll still be a few impure souls around. But by the time the Krishna soul ascends the throne, by then all the impure souls will have gone home. And so in that transition period, the parents of the advanced party or even the advanced party themselves, their birth hasn't been through purity, but they will give birth through the power of yoga. And so they don't have gyan themselves. And this is why they're not able to pass on gyan to the deity souls. Because I'd always wondered how come the souls don't have gyan, the deity souls. And when I understood that in this transition period, it's not Brahmins giving birth to the deity souls, it's the advanced party giving birth with the power of yoga to the deity souls, but they themselves don't have full gyan. So they don't have that sort of information to pass on to the deity souls. Otherwise, if there's some very special information, like God is incorporeal, God is your parent, and this is Sangam Yuga, and this is now Satyug starting, they wouldn't be able to keep it to themselves. Of course, they're going to share it in some form with their children. They're going to want to share, but they don't share because they don't have that information. So this is about as much as is clear of the role of the advanced party. Now, further details, no doubt Baba will explain through messages at some point, or maybe it will just become clear to us as time goes on. It's interesting that, when you read this, when I read the Sakar Murlis, different sentences jump at you. And so that sentence that really clarified that Satyug actually begins when all other souls have gone home. And Baba said just a few, so it's not like there'll be a big population still remaining, but basically it'll be the population that are the advanced party souls who are there for the purpose of being part of that bridge, that transition to the golden age.
So yes, gentlemen, then there's always this question that since they're helping to bring about golden age, then isn't that good karma? And shouldn't that good karma be accounted in the soul?
The question of good karma through my consciousness today, in which I'm soul conscious, I'm God conscious, I'm consciously bringing souls to Baba, is a very different situation to the role that these souls are playing. They're not actually bringing souls closer to God. They're not actually having yoga to purify themselves. They've reached whatever karmatit stage they had to attain. And I think that the fruit of their effort is already beginning at that point in which their parents see that they are happy, they are light, they're easy, they're very clean, they're very pure. By clean, I mean, they can sense the attitude and the vision and everything about these souls is special. It's very, very pure, not like the ordinary children. Today, Baba spoke about how today's children are growing up in a world in which there's so many bad influences that if they're a little bit naughty, well, you can understand that. But these advanced party souls, they're helping in a very incognito way. And they're also receiving the reward of their karma already. They're helping, but also receiving. So the help is not on a conscious level, it's on an unconscious level. The one who doesn't receive any fruit of his karma is a soul of Brahma Baba. Because for 50 plus years now, Baba's been in the subtle region, and the one who truly, truly becomes equal to the Father, like God, totally altruistic, doing so much good karma, and yet not receiving any fruit of that good karma that God does. Brahma Baba doing so much from the subtle region, but his cup is full. His state of karmatit is complete, and no need for any return for any type. So the soul of Brahma Baba is truly, truly altruistic, like the Father. But all others, I think they're experiencing the fruit of their good karma, their purity, the power that they have, and the love that they're receiving from their parents and so on. And they're also helping incognito, unbeknown even to themselves.
Thank you, Jennifer. So I think we'll sum that up. I think you've said a lot. Thank you. Shall we move on to some of the questions? Again, there's quite a few. So somebody's asking, I'm a working professional and I've spent my time carving my career and spend a lot of hours at work. But this means that I have less time for Baba. So should I compromise on my career?
I think it's a very conscious choice and a decision to be made by each one individually. Now, at this point in the cycle, yes, I have to earn my living. If I have a family, I'm responsible to take care of the family. And so it shouldn't ever come back to me that because you're a Brahmin, you didn't take care of your family, you didn't provide a home for them, etc., or a good education for them. So settling karma with family, fulfilling responsibility to family, it came up again in today's Murli. So let me be able to do all of that. But if it's in terms of my time for myself and service, then I have to see, do I want to reach the top of the tree in my career, or am I content to be attaining a certain level that's comfortable for me? It's a good position, but it's not demanding excessive time from my side. So I think I have to make that choice for myself and also look at my circumstances and see what the needs of my situation are.
Right, thank you, Jennifer. Again, family situation. I'm living with someone who is only expecting and not caring for others. So which elevated Swaman should I have?
The bestower. Just simply be the bestower like Baba. And so let me be able to give the soul happiness. Let me give them spiritual love. Let me give them good company. Let me share my virtues with them so that it inspires them also. And surely in our conversations together, we're going to be bringing in Gyan in some form or another, even if they're not ready to hear about soul and God and the 7 days course. But talk about mind, talk about consciousness, talk about the impact of vibrations. There's lots of things that nowadays people are thinking about and talking about, and they're very good entry points into deep spiritual conversations. So talk about these things and they'll gradually begin to understand. You know, drop by drop, drip by drip, the stone is able to be molded.
Right, gentlemen. This question is from the youth group. And the question is that if there are impure dreams, what are the root causes of that? And how do we overcome them?
There's still impurity in sanskars, but B, also it could be that I'm watching things or listening to things that trigger those sanskars. And so let me be very aware that the quality of my thoughts today and the consciousness that I maintain today can help me deal with my dreams and my sanskars. Of course, the timetable that Baba has given, absolutely. The disciplines that Baba has taught us. Am I looking at impure advertisements as I'm traveling? I think most countries easing off now in lockdown, and so going to work, what sort of advertisements am I seeing? What's that triggering in my mind? And do my eyes linger on physical form of human beings? So just get to know yourself more and more deeply and see what are the triggers that make you have waste thoughts. And also maybe not consciously, but the things we're exposed to in Kali Yuga, all of these are triggers. And so can I find a way of actually seeing and not seeing, not having the impact, and not letting my eyes linger where they shouldn't linger? Maybe it's songs, old songs, new songs. Again, they can be a trigger for all sorts of feelings and emotions that are not very helpful for me now.
Yes, gentlemen, it's so easy to go astray on the internet. You're looking at one thing and then there's an advertisement. Again, just quickly, gentlemen, if you could answer this, any methods for burning impurities during yoga?
I think it's just simply the fire of love. And so that in itself is burning the impurities. I don't have to be thinking about which sanskar I want to burn. The time for checking and changing is a different one to the time of yoga, in a sense. So traffic control, check. What has been the quality of my thinking and consciousness over the last hour? At night, yes, you get an overall picture, but you don't get a detailed picture. There's so much that's happened in one day that a lot of it is lost, it's forgotten. It's there somewhere, but it's not there in a conscious way. And so let me be checking and changing through the day. And in yoga, let me just experience the fire of love and be with Baba in that state.
Right, gentlemen. And gentlemen, I was thinking, what about countries where there are no centers? How are these people going to receive Baba's message or knowledge or even Baba's recognition?
There's very, very few countries that haven't been served to some extent or another. Even little islands in the Pacific and here and there, many have been served. Somebody said to me, there's several Caribbean islands where we don't have centers, true, but Brahmins have visited those places mostly and gone and given message to some lucky souls. There's a couple of countries in Europe where we don't have centers, but we have had people go on expeditions to try and wake up people there. And it hasn't happened in a couple of places that I'm aware of in Europe, but in other places too. But I think we just have to reach out and make sure that wherever there are connections and contacts, we follow them through and try and give souls an opportunity. But also, I know that internet, it really has no boundaries. And so anybody in any country who's actually looking for something spiritual is going to find a way to connect with BKs in some form or another. I know that, for example, Shivani Ben's programs are seen in countries where we don't have centers. So that's probably happening in more places than I personally know about. So television, international today, so everything reaches out. So whoever really has done the bhakti and is waiting for the fruit of their bhakti is definitely going to get the return. It's God's promise.
Right, gentlemen, I think we can finish today.
Great.
Have a nice meditation with you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's have a few minutes of yoga.
Just to know you, just to live inside your grace, just to feel you. In my heart at this time, in this place,
Thank you, Runaben. Thank